Police could face prosecution over the death of a man who'd been restrained in custody. A special belt had been fastened around Thomas Orchard's face after he was arrested in Exeter. He died a week later. The police complaints watchdog has now warned forces across the country not to use the belts around people's heads, saying they pose a risk to individuals. A year on, Mr. Orchard's family have told Channel 4 News they're desperate for information about his death. Our Home Affairs correspondent Andy Davis has this report.
On the anniversary of his death, in the kitchen of the family home, Thomas Orchard's parents, brother and sister gather, bewildered by what has passed and increasingly apprehensive about what lies ahead.
A year ago today, we were embarking on the worst week of our lives, watching Tom struggle for his life and not winning the struggle.
This year has gone so fast, such a lot has happened, and it's changed all of our lives, and it's changed us forever.
You're unlikely to have heard about the death of Tom Orchard, but what happened to him a year ago in an Exeter police station may yet develop into a defining case for the police. This is the story of a young man with schizophrenia who, we've now learned, handcuffed and legs bound, had a restraining belt fastened around his face, and then lost consciousness.
What do you understand happened on the 3rd of October?
Tom's mental health had deteriorated quite significantly, and he was seen approaching people in the city centre and behaving hugely erratically.
His was a life, in the words of his mother, fragmented by the ravages of mental illness. It was October last year, and the 32-year-old had just finished a stint at the Exeter church where he worked part-time as a caretaker. There'd been a rapid decline in his mental health, we're told. He walked at pace into the city centre and soon became aggressive, remonstrating, it's understood, with another man. The police were called. Around half a dozen officers turned up. Thomas Orchard was placed on the ground. Limb restraints, we understand, were applied, and he was arrested on suspicion of a public order offence. He was taken to this nearby police station. The limited public account until now had been that Mr. Orchard was soon found unresponsive in his cell and then taken to intensive care where he never regained consciousness. Now Channel 4 News has learned that while detained, Thomas Orchard, handcuffed and legs bound, had what's called an emergency response belt fastened around his face. This is how it's normally used, shown off 13 years ago by the first force in the UK to adopt it. But in Mr. Orchard's case, it wasn't strapped around his chest or his legs. Rather, it was applied to his face to try to stop him spitting or biting.
Before you knew about the details of what had happened to Thomas, had you ever heard of a spit hood or a bite hood before?
Never.
Had you ever heard of an emergency response belt before?
No. I can understand more the use of an actual hood, a spit and bite hood, but this is a belt. We don't know how or why fully that it was applied. We have massive concerns about its use.
The family now want to see the CCTV footage of Thomas's time in detention. However harrowing an experience they know that will be.
We have been told that it's quite distressing. We have been told that we will be able to see it eventually. The CPS have said that they would like us to see it in a place where we can get some support.
I mean, we know it's horrendous. We've lost Thomas under horrible, horrible circumstances. It feels like it can't get much worse, and at this point we just need answers.
What factors may have contributed to Thomas Orchard's death will no doubt be examined and made public in the months to come. But for the police, this case has already had significant repercussions which go way beyond the realm of just one force. And at the heart of this issue is one important question. Just how many police forces have been using restraining belts around people's faces? It's now emerged the police watchdog, the IPCC, wrote to every chief constable in England and Wales in the month following Mr. Orchard's death, So concerned was it by the use of these belts around people's heads? The Crown Prosecution Service is now considering whether to bring criminal charges against officers and staff involved.
Whilst we await the specific details in this case, questions must be asked about who sanctioned the use of the ERB, what monitoring and regulation is taking place about its use, and also whether or not other custody agencies are using the ERB, because I am concerned about other deaths happening in similar circumstances.
As the questions mount, a family now finds itself lost in a process as gruelling as it is relentless, increasingly disillusioned, staring at a picture of a death they can't yet fathom and a life ahead they fear to imagine.
There's no script for this. There's nowhere to go. It's like I feel very little. I feel as if I'm up against a huge wall of bureaucracy, and I feel frankly scared about the future.
We want to get justice for Tom, and we're going to put all of our energy and all of our love and all of our efforts now into finding some sort of justice for Tom.
As a family grieving the loss of Thomas, we feel that there's been a lack of compassion from the powers that be. We had to wait 7 months before we could get Thomas's body for burial. So we're really struggling to get any closure to our grief with this ongoing inquiry, which they're telling us now will last in total about 5 years before it closes. So 5 years before we can put this to rest. And it's agony for the family. It's absolutely agony. And the system doesn't help our grief.
Well, we did ask if Theresa May, Secretary of State for the Home Office, and a spokesperson from the Association of Chief Police Officers could come on, but nobody was available to talk to us, saying the case was still active and so it would be inappropriate to comment.